The biggest missing feature in MLB the Show history has got to be international free agency. Yes, international free agency. The last 4 cover athletes, 5 if you technically include Javi Baez, have been players from another country. Javi Baez is from Puerto Rico, which technically means it's U.S., and he did go to high school in Florida. I can't remember where exactly off the top of my head, but he was drafted. Following that was Fernando Tatis Jr., born in the Dominican Republic. Obviously, if any of you know, his father, the only man to hit 2 Grand Slams in a single game. He holds that record distinctly. No one else in like the 200-year history of baseball has ever touched that. But Fernando Tatis came on the scene like gangbusters, had that suspension a couple years ago, came back from it. Honestly, is an even better player than what he was before he left. Shohei Ohtani, which, if you've watched this channel, you know how I feel about the addition of two-way players into the game and how I feel like they haven't done that properly. But that man was on the cover last year. That was probably your biggest opportunity to be like, yo, we've added a new franchise feature. Boom. International free agency. And the two-way player rule, aka the Ohtani rule, which didn't come into the game until 23 when you put Jazz Chisholm on the cover. Again, we still going back to 2006, and if I really look hard enough, because I'd have to find the games from 98 through 2005, I'm very sure it's not in there either. There is no way to sign international free agents unless you draft them. I understand that when the CBA and the lockout was looming in 2021, there was a stipulation in it where if by the 2022, I believe July 2022, if there wasn't a unanimous vote for international players to become drafted, which is a positive thing for those players, just because a lot of the players from the Latin American countries tend to get, to put it blankly, robbed, at least compared to players that come from Japan or even other countries. You know, if you come from a league, from a major league equivalent in said country, then you can get more. But if you're a 13, 14, 15-year-old player, a team will give you $10,000, which ain't much, but it's a lot for said country that player may be in to help their family. You're going to sign that. Hell, I would have signed it at that age. Even here in the U.S., it would at least have been something. It wouldn't have done nearly as much as it would do like in a country like the DR, like in Venezuela. But it's something, and it's almost like a placeholder of like, all right, I will be at least in the minors and I have a shot. In the game, a lot of teams will go out of their way to essentially avoid MLB free agency and signing players that way and getting their talent via the international ranks, which should be a strategy. That should be something I should be able to do. You can take players from the Rule 5. You can take players from the Rule 4, which is the amateur draft. Why are we not given a period of time, which honestly is 11 months out of the year, and you're able to sign players from other countries? There are players that will go from Japan into the collegiate system and allow themselves to be drafted. As a matter of fact, I just saw on Twitter not like 2 days ago, there's a guy named Sasaki, and honestly, the headline threw me off because I'm like, Sasaki heading to the NCAA or heading to college, and I was like, oh snap, Roki Sasaki is going to college? It wasn't him. Actually, I'd have to look up to see if that player is related to him, but that player is going to play in college. That means he can get drafted after a year, 2 years, 3 years. So if he stays all 4, I don't think he stays all 4. I think he'll get drafted after a year. Who knows where he'll land, especially considering that the draft is, I think now 20 rounds as opposed to like 80, what it used to be before COVID-19 pandemic. But I can see the difficulties of putting that into the game. That doesn't mean they couldn't have done this by now. Hell, Stadium Creative was supposed to be here and MLB 14, and we just got it like 3 or 4 years ago. One of the bigger hurdles for this would be whether you're going to license out the other leagues from other countries. KBO, the Japanese leagues, which there are a couple, Taiwanese baseball leagues, Latin American baseball leagues. Are you going to license them? I don't think you have to. It would be interesting. It would shine some light on other forms of baseball, especially considering a lot of these leagues play during the MLB offseason. A second issue, which honestly is something I think that they could revamp back to what it used to be, the messaging system, and get messages from people throughout the organization, people throughout the league. Hey, this player is up on the trade block. Hey, this minor league player is doing good, doing bad. Hey, this guy is on waivers. Now, a lot of these messages have a hell of a lot more to do with Diamond Dynasty, which is dumb because I don't care what my friends get as far as Diamond Dynasty cards. Is it cool? Sure, if that were my alley, but that's not my alley. And this would help with immersion because now I feel like, oh, okay, I see what's going on in the league. Out of the Park Baseball has a messaging system, and they touch on a lot more stuff. With the posting system, a player will be posted for 30 days. You can get a message, hey, we can go out there and bid on them. And you take, hopefully, a new budget system, which I've spoken about in the previous episode, allocate some money. You already allocate money for the rookie draft, for the amateur draft, allocate some money for an international signing pool. Teams can trade that money in order to acquire players, and I would think teams like Tampa Bay, teams like Oakland, I'd even say a team like even Arizona, despite the fact they made it to the World Series last year, I don't feel like they're ready to spend quite yet. They may spend here and there to get their players, but they know they're not a heavily coveted destination like a New York, like an LA, like a maybe Boston at one point in time, like a Chicago can be, where the big city atmosphere really, players will want to come there just because of that. They know that those teams will usually spend money to acquire talent. Teams like Kansas City are not going to really go out there to spend a lot of money. Granted, they did just this offseason have the second highest spending out of any team in Major League Baseball, which clearly pales in comparison to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who spent damn near $1.5 million. I'm exaggerating that number a little bit. Kansas City spent $100 million. Now, you may be wondering, why would they spend that much money? Kind of not very much different than what they did a decade ago. The division wasn't that strong. They figured, all right, I guess we can blow some money here and there. Re-sign Bobby Witt, not even re-sign, extend Bobby Witt to give them a core piece to build around. They have some other players that look like they're going to be around at least for the next couple years. Spend some money and literally steal a division in 2024. That way, we can justify some spending in 2025. Would they go after Juan Soto? Who knows? I doubt it. Highly doubt it. But they may find some other free agents out there in which to spend their money. An international free agent pool would also help with giving us something to do in the offseason. The international signing period is from mid-January, all the way through to mid-December. So there's like a 1 month period in which there's really nothing in terms of international signings and stuff going on. But again, you give the offseason more oomph behind it. Maybe you find that international player who they might be a 45 overall. You might not have scouted them well. You don't know their potential, and they just, boom, blow up. Give them a couple years in A-ball. Of course, single A-ball would have to operate in a meaningful fashion, as well as an international rookie league, U.S. rookie league. Again, this would give a lot of those players who are D and F potential a fighting chance to at least play against each other and see how they do. Of course, in order for them to do that, they have to completely change the finance system, and I want y'all to check out the previous episode and where I talk a lot about this, how they did it better in MLB 12 than they have and probably will do in MLB 24. Review me on any podcast you might be listening to. Hit me up on Twitter @StateFranchise. Check out the full episode here.